Greetings, friends, and Happy New Year. This is a pre-recorded service. It's an address that I have been given by Spirit to share with you, and you all thought you were going to get away with it. You all thought you were going to go an entire week without hearing from Spirit and from me. Well, sorry, but that doesn't happen in this place. So here today I come to see you all, to wish you a happy new year and hope that you've had a wonderful Christmas, and to share with you some words that have been given to me by Spirit. For a change, they actually got me to write it down, which is new for me. It doesn't happen very often. But they also wanted to make sure that I kept it short. So they gave me a buzzword, a beginning, a starting point. 2,000 words. And that's exactly what it is called. So, friends, 2,000 words. Our words have the power to harm or to heal. Words have the power to inspire or to dissuade. Words have the power to educate, or words can have the power to misinform. They can shine light in dark places and bring joy where there is sadness. They can bring hope, anticipation and aspiration to the forefront when despair, pessimism and fear stalk in the shadows of the narrow path of balance and existence that we walk upon in each of our lives. Words can do all of these things, but there is a condition to all of this. As with all things that make for changes and newly formed thoughts, words must be heard. For a long time, and in many homilies, sermons, addresses and writings that I have thrust upon just about pretty much the world and anyone nearby who would listen, I have continually focused and advocated repeatedly that the simple but powerful message is that we just must be kind to each other. That message, those words that I have spoken repeatedly on behalf of those beings in higher realms of light, were heard. Now I know this because someone bought a badge for me to wear on my lapel with exactly those words upon them, along with some other choice words of a Saxon variety on it, so that I could give my jaw a rest and still advocate that message, or at least I think that's what she was doing, and not worrying about her eardrums being ruptured under the repeated barrage of the same message, no matter how important it might be. But as we enter another year, that new year brings a new message and a new hope, and a hopeful purpose and a bolder, more beneficial, I pray, methodology. You see, it's one thing for words to be heard, but in truth, the ultimate impact of words comes not from speaking them, or the impact that they can have on people who hear them, but it is in that they are acted upon. Every once in a while, there is a shift in the world, in the way we interact, in the way we act, in the way we speak and in the way we think. It is a shift that shakes the world to its core and propels some to lofty heights and new levels of exposure and understanding, but adversely leaves some in stunned silence and trembling in fear and trepidation. Those days are not nearly as rare as we might think, and sadly they almost always come with a body count. Because when the odious and terrible ramblings of well-polished speakers or writers suddenly find a soapbox of the right size and in the right location to allow madness and hatred to become the normal and expected measure of what it is to be human, the quiet, gentle voice of reason finds itself drowned in deafening silence and in inaction. We live in a world where people dream of a utopia in which we can all live, forgetting that in order for that to happen, some must forget or at least set aside what they have and believe. Whilst increasingly those who proclaim that a dystopian future is on the horizon cling like falling victims to that concept, not realising that they are at least in part adding to the possibility of it coming to pass, with their unwillingness to be swayed by the possibility of others' views mattering. A world and society that claims to be and go beyond the animalistic nature of what we were before the spark of enlightened self-interest and mutual accomplishment thrust us forward to create art and literature. And yet there are those who revel and wallow in terms that befit the pack or the pride or the herd, not realising that in those attitudes and actions that kept us from discovering fire and penicillin, they are creating Mona Lisa and the Great Gatsby. We live in a world where increasingly extreme views and more worryingly extreme actions are not only tolerated but anticipated and expected. We live in a world where equality and equity, kindness and justice are demonised as partisan propaganda by those who invented and nurtured such base concepts, where those who proclaim to be defenders of truth, justice and liberty and ideology of joy employ strong-armed militant tactics to achieve their goals. Up is down and down is up, and the world rolls along, blaming human-made concepts and institutions for the problems of the world, offering yet more other human-made concepts and institutions as a worthless substitute and replacement, leaving the same people and situations in their places of power, and not so silent ponderings to continue to lead the charge of removing the free will from the masses, turning bandages into chains, turning songs and sonnets into war cries, turning optimism into foolish pride. The world is bleeding. The world is suffocating, and the world is learning not to heal, but to expose those wounds and pour salt and ash into them. This cannot be the legacy we leave for our inheritors. This cannot be the lesson we teach those who follow us from youth to adulthood. And this certainly cannot be the vision that we allow those in the higher realms of light, those who went before us, to have of us. There comes a time in every civilization, in every walk of life and in every group of people, where we stand at the edge of eternity, looking into a chasm of inaction. A time for those present to change, to grow, or to fall back into an ever-widening and repeating cycle of continual error and failure. We as a species, as a single race, have come so far, and yet still have so much further to proceed and grow. But we have paused at the apex of the road, at the pinnacle of the mountain, at the edge of the precipice. We risk a stall, a fall, a slide, into a future that has been seen by so many generations before us. There was a time when we knew without question that to free the imprisoned, we should tear down walls, that to unite the separated, we should demolish borders, and that to bring forward change, equality and equity should be nullifying and make meaningless old labels. But now more than ever, walls, borders and labels grow. They solidify and increase in power and magnitude. Words can have the power to heal, to bring forward action, but only if they're acted upon. Yes, the world is bleeding, but can words truly help? only if those words can summon to the wound someone trained to fix it. Then yes, of course, they can. Not everyone has training in first aid, even less a degree in medical science. But we can bring to attention the damage with our words. And if enough calls attention are made, then someone with the right preparation will undoubtedly heed that call and answer it. Words will have played the part as they should, and the actions that they inspire will finish the job. As we stand in the dawn light of a new year, I sit here committed to shining a light in dark places, to engage in the practice of joy where there is sadness, to encourage aspiration, anticipation and hope ahead of fear, pessimism and despair. I will continue to fulfill my commitment to speak, act, to encourage in the name of those beings I called friends and guides, in those unrelenting, unending, luminous realms of light. But now more than ever, our words do need to heal, inspire, educate and encourage, and they need to be heard, and we must all do our part. The world is bleeding. The world is suffocating. The world is bursting open its wounds. So let's go and find someone with bandages. Let's go and breathe air into her lungs. Let's go and find the people with the salt and ash and stay their hands. And let us go and break down walls, demolish borders, and let us go and expunge old labels. Together, from our places of gathering, from our homes and in the streets and out into the world, let us go forward and remind people that context, content and compassion matter. Let us leave a legacy to be proud of a lesson that shines brighter than any star for 1,000 years to come. And let optimism, hope and kindness be the shining lights, and let never be the tools of darkness and despair that aspire and anticipate a world free of tyranny, suffering and hefty offering shame. Be not false prophecy, but as nature intended. If we stand far from the madding crowd's ignoble discord, with its never-learned sombre wishes not once straying along a cold, isolated valley of life, keeping the noiseless tenor their way, when those who proclaim to walk the path of justice turn their eyes coldly away from injustice, when those who declare that it is just and noble to follow and serve, seeking only to lead and control, by limiting the immeasurable, by interpreting conditionless compassion as restrictive, and by preaching to expose our jowls to those who would strike them, only to cleave silently and patiently in the darkness to a weapon of suffering that has been forged from an apparatus of peace, equipped to strike rather than shadow their own fables, obligated upon us by hands and voices that know their reasoned, impassioned truth not, then we will know that we must make a stance, take a stance, and rise to the challenges before us. But every time we face a challenge, we must remember that our magnitude for strength and our capacity for courage is not measured in times of stillness and delight, but when the need calls for us to rise to the occasion. And history has always shown us that those dimensions may well be limitless. My friends, we cannot change the world overnight. We cannot soothe her suffering and free the oppressed in 7 days. And we most certainly cannot do any of those things on our own. But we must, with our words and deeds, our thoughts and actions, with our personal doctrines and our private gods, stand as a beacon of light in the very depths of darkness, bringing the noise to the silence, bringing joy to the sadness, because there needs to be a shift in this world, in the way that we interact, in the way that we act, in the way that we speak, and in the way that we think. A shift that shakes the world to its core and propels all to those lofty heights and new levels of exposure and empathy, and never leave, not once ever leave, any in stunned silence and trembling in fear and trepidation. My friends, all of this and more can be achieved and must be achieved when words of kindness, unity and compassion are spoken, when teachers and poets, parents and children, siblings and friends are truly heard, and when heroes and healers stand not to be measured, but because it is the just and right and noble thing to do, and act upon the voice of conscience and compassion in our hearts, to ennoble the meek, educate by example the lost, and to comfort the victims of life's many difficulties and struggles. This year, as with every year before it, we are reminded at this time of all of the things and all of the people that we have lost. But we must not let the final loss of this year be kindness and understanding. So we will do what is hard, achieve what is great, and we will reach for the stars to bless and honour the memory of those that have gone before us. We will aid and comfort and give voice to those with whom we walk this earth, to defend the hope for prosperity for all of those that will follow us. My friends, we cannot change the world overnight, but we can ill afford to wait one more dusk and dawn to pass before we begin the task of rising to that challenge. My friends, may your personal gods bless you, and thank you all for your time you have taken to listen to these words that Spirit have asked me. A new beginning, a new day, and a new time where we all can stand together as one, to unite, to speak, to be heard, to listen, and to carry forward that message of unconditional love, which will set us all free from borders, from walls, and from labels. God bless you all, and good night.